Hello everyone, I'm Cassius and welcome back to another episode of the Shakespeare Minute. Today on the weekly opinion/interpretation segment, I will be featuring another episode of Shakespeare Answers. The question, which I have heard countless times over the years, comes to us from the world of Macbeth and is quite simply, what about Fleance? Since this one requires a good bit of interpretation and not just a sort of fact dive through the play, I'm going to answer this one on a Sunday and not a Wednesday. I am trying to keep Wednesdays fairly fact-based, but we'll see how long that lasts. I do have a few theories, though, about why Fleance, the son of Banquo, doesn't figure in the conclusion of Macbeth, and of course Macbeth's downfall. For those of you wondering right now why Fleance would need to figure in the end of Macbeth, take a listen to what the witches tell his father.
Lesser than Macbeth, and greater.
Not so happy, yet much happier.
Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none.
They tell Banquo that while he himself is not destined to be a king like his friend Macbeth, he is going to be the ancestor to a line of kings. This is why when Banquo is killed, Macbeth is devastated to learn that Fleance did not also die in the attack. He needs the entire family line, and not just his potentially dangerous friend, to be uprooted. And then, of course, he returns to the witches later, and they show him the unending line of kings that Banquo's heirs will become.
Will the line stretch out to the crack of doom? Never yet.
But Fleance, that child whose existence will burn Macbeth, has literally nothing to do with his downfall later in the play. What gives? Well, did Shakespeare just forget about Fleance? In my opinion, no. This is not to say that Shakespeare is incapable of dropping people who'd be better off continuing their plot arc, but the man is still human, of course, even though he is the best. In my opinion, Fleance just isn't important beyond what he actually does, though, which is admittedly not a lot. His existence isn't for himself, or even for his father. His existence is for two people. One, King James. Jamie was of the opinion that he descended from Banquo. Showing that Banquo's children survive is really all that's necessary to establish that, yeah, eventually his family will become the ruling family. They haven't been wiped out. The upshot to that plot point existed largely IRL, and not in the world of the play. The second person that Fleance exists for is Macbeth. The witches are there to destroy Macbeth, not to put Banquo's family on a pedestal. They don't even address Banquo in the first scene and get close to mentioning that his sons will be kings until he specifically asks them to speak to him. Their prophecies smack of the human intervention required to bring them about stripe that plagued the ancient Greeks, of course. There is a sense that the prophecies here in Macbeth are only as accurate as they are harmful to the protagonist. Macbeth goes power mad and commits heinous acts through his paranoia and despair, brought on by his belief in Banquo's heritage. That's the important part. The heritage actually existing is unimportant. It's an afterthought. You know, there are all sorts of loopholes to these prophecies, as you well know.
Macbeth shall never vanquish thee, until this Burnham Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him.
That can never be!
Yeah, Burnham Wood could come to Dunsinane, or a bunch of soldiers could put together some fairly standard-seeming, if slightly interesting, camouflage. Or, my favorite in Shakespeare is not actually from this play, it's when Henry IV is told, "You'll die in Jerusalem." And it turns out there's a room in one of his castles called the Jerusalem Room. Oh snap! Yeah, I'd slap that prophet silly is all I'm saying. Ultimately, the witches are messing around, building a world where Macbeth will be lured into self-destruction. It's purely a nod to King James that Banquo's heirs will become king. The kid, Fleance, need not be in the finale. Only Macbeth and his prophecy-induced fears need be there. The prophecies are not entirely descriptive acts, in this theory anyway, but proscriptive, forcing reality to mold to them. They do not just read prophecies from what already will happen. No way. Not how I see it. They choose to make this happen. Hecate actually calls them out for messing with things and changing things up. And that rounds out episode 2 of Shakespeare Answers. Thanks for tuning in for the Shakespeare Minute. I'm Cassius. Till next time, think of the world. Oh, also, I have linked to the Slings and Arrows opener about Macbeth in the description. It's a hysterical song, and what a hysterical show. Seriously, watch this show.